Alright folks, so I figured I'd talk about SWR real quick and how to set it. There's tons of videos out there. There's dozens and dozens on YouTube, and you could read about it online, but figured why not make my own, maybe my way of explaining it. I don't know, maybe it'll be easier for some folks, I have no idea. I've noticed this whole CB thing, I'm actually getting a few views here and there, and I'm getting a few questions. And I've been in radio on and off for well over 20 years. Never got my ham ticket or anything. I'm gonna go ahead and get it now though. Go ahead and study for the test and go ahead and get that. Just a good thing to have, especially with this whole outbreak that's going on right now. What if communications does go down or something? Well, it's a good thing to have. Anyways, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to use a striker today. And let's just go for regular AM. Doesn't matter, if you have your $39.99 radio from you got at Walmart, or, if you've got, it doesn't matter. They're all the same. So let's just pretend, this is AM radio, which, it's on AM function, but most of your 40 channel like this here, like this Cobra, just your 40 channel truck stop radio they're going to sell right here. You do have the internal calibration here, but if you can, it's always better to use an external meter. Okay, so I have this here, so I'm not gonna pull it down, but on the back you just have your two connectors for your here. So on the back of the radio, you're going to have your coax. It's going to run from the back of your radio, and what you're going to do is you're going to put a jumper there. So you're going to run that from there to the input of your SWR meter, and then on the output of the SWR meter it'll say antenna, and you run that to your antenna. So let's say all you have is a radio, no amplifiers, none of this other nonsense in line, right? And you don't have to leave a meter in line unless you want to. You can set it and forget it if you want to. Okay, so let's say you have this set up on your bench, in your garage, or in your car, and all you have is a CB radio and an antenna. Just unplug the end of your antenna, plug it into the output of this, get yourself a little 3-foot jumper wire. It doesn't have to be 3 foot, but that's common. And go from the input of here, back of your radio. You're good to go. Then, what you'll do, let's go to channel 1. Okay, and these are all going to be a little different, but they're all, they might not have these functions. It might be you go to like a truck stop and get one, it's going to have less features, but it's going to do the same thing. So you'll go to set SWR. We have the mic. We're going to key the mic. And I'm going to try to do this here. Okay, I got it keyed. Okay, you see how we got it adjusted all the way over to the calibration there. And then what we'll do is we'll flip this to read your actual SWR numbers. I'm on channel 1. That's the top scale, so that's showing I have a 1-to-1 SWR. A little bit less than a 1-to-1. They say anything under 1.5 is acceptable. However, the farther down you can get it, the better. Okay. Now we can go to channel 40. I'm going to do the same thing all over again. I'm trying to hold this microphone with my chin. Okay. SWR. Now we're going to take a reading. Now you see we have a 1.1 and a half. Now what does that mean? If your SWRs are higher on channel 40 than they are on channel 1, then technically your antenna is too long and it needs to be shortened. Now this here is fully acceptable. This is hardly anything. And it's definitely not worth going up on my roof to try to mess with that. Now if channel 1 was 1.1 and channel 40 was 1.5 or 1.4, you're damn right I'd be going up on the roof. Now we can also go to channel 20. That's always a good idea. Go right in the middle of the band. And we're going to check it again there. You do have to calibrate it every time. SWR. So this particular antenna I tuned exactly per the manufacturer's instructions for 27185, which is channel 19. So channel 19 should be the lowest SWR, and that's just where I happen to set it at. So there's your calibrate, there's your SWR. And as you can see, channel 19 is pretty flat. So once again, we'll leave it there. We're going to go to channel 1. I'm not going to recalibrate it. Channel 1. Channel 40. And then channel 19, where I calibrated it for, because that's where I talk on the most. So all this can be achieved by adjusting your antenna. If you're, let me go out and get some antennas and I'll show you. Okay, stand by. All right, I'm going to grab some antennas here. And you know, sometimes when I make a video, I'll say something I don't mean. So if something sounds like it's wrong, just put the right word in there. Sometimes I'll say stuff backwards. So I got a couple antennas here, and I've got a couple others here, just sitting here. And another thing I should mention is when I said if your SW is higher on channel 40, your antenna is too long, it needs to be shortened. Well, the opposite's true also. If your SWR is higher on channel 1, then your antenna is too short and it needs to be lengthened. So here's an old Wilson fiberglass antenna. This would be commonly referred to, you know, a generic term as your fire stick antenna. Here's a fire stick here. And you can see these are both a fiberglass stick, you know, a round fiberglass stick basically. And here's where it's going to mount on your mount. And soldered onto the mount, either one, you're going to have a copper wire. You can see how the copper wire goes up here. This one happens to be loaded right there. And then as you get up to the top, it's all wound tightly too. It's loaded there. And then this here is your adjusting tip. You have a Allen set screw right there. So let's say your SWR on channel 40 is too high. So you need to lower the length of your antenna. You'll push this in. On channel 1, if it's too high, you need to lengthen it. You'll put that out. And once you get it good, as good as you can get it on channel 1 and 40, then tighten the set screw. Now, if you only talk on channel 19, let's say, or channel 17, whatever channel, check that channel too. You know, go through. A good rule of thumb is do channel 1, channel 20, channel 40. Okay, this one here is the same thing. It's wound a little bit differently. It's all loosely wound, gets a little tighter, and then the top gets real tight right here. And if I pop that cap off, it's going to be similar to that. Just this one here has a machine screw with a set nut on it, and it accomplishes the same thing. Now, here's a common antenna. Here's the Wilson 5000. It's faded, so you can't see it anymore. Put it over here. But your stainless steel whip antenna. So in here, you basically have a coil like this, except this one is a lot bigger around and it's a lot thicker. It's heavy dutier, and it's meant to handle more wattage. But basically the same design. You have a coil in there. Here's your set screws here. So the same thing. This whip can be pushed out or pushed in depending where you need it. And let's say these whips usually come a little long when you buy them. And that gives you the ability to trim it. You don't want to trim it from the top because they'll have a little metal end on the top. So let's say you have this antenna all the way in, you've tried your adjustment, and you can't get the SWR on channel 40 low enough. Channel 40's higher than channel 1. Hope I'm saying that right. I hope it's not backwards. I think it's right. So anyways, you're going to have to cut this whip. So on the end that goes in here, you're going to start cutting it. I recommend 1/8 of an inch at a time. I wouldn't do any more. You can throw it in a vise. You can use a hacksaw. You can use a cutoff wheel. You can use a strong pair of dikes. Has to be a pretty strong one. 1/8 of an inch at a time. Don't cut too much off, because once you cut it off, you're not going to put it back on. Okay. Here's another style. I don't know who makes this one. There's tons of these out there. It's like probably some Predator copy or something or another. I really don't know, but there's tons of these out there. So there's your whip. There's your coil in the middle on this one. Different design. But you're going to have the same adjustment on it. There's your adjustment right there. So once again, you can lengthen or shorten it. You can cut it if need be. And that's a few antennas that I just happen to have laying here. Kind of show you how to do it. Now there is something else worth mentioning. It may or not affect you, but it recently did affect me on my Jeep. Now, first of all, for an antenna, if you can get an antenna somewhere around the center of your roof, on the top of your roof of your vehicle, that's by far the best place you can put it, because the top of your roof is metal and it gives it a ground plane. It gives a signal a place to go. That's the best place to put it by far. Let's say you can't put it on the roof. The second best place, if you have a trunk, a deck lid, a trunk on the back of the vehicle, that would probably be the second best place to put it, on the middle of that trunk. Now, sometimes you might not be able to do that either, which is what my old Jeep YJ is. Has a fiberglass roof, of course. I got the hard tops, fiberglass. So I wasn't going to mount it up there. So I bought the bracket. You'll find this in my other videos. Mounts behind the tail light, which is very common on a Jeep. But then you're not going to have that ground plane. It's not going to, have a piece of metal under it. So I went ahead and went with, I actually had that fire stick on there right there with the red tip. And I had a 3-inch coil on it. And along with the coil, I had another 2.5-inch quick release. There's part of the quick release right here, this piece. Why am I telling you this? Well, it'll make sense in a minute. Hold on. All right, so we're back inside now. So this is what I had on the Jeep. and messing around with radios and CBs and crap for like over 20 years, I really didn't think anything of it. Because you see these springs on everything, especially, you know, if you're going to go off-road, it helps the antenna bounce around so it's not too rigid. I thought nothing of it. So here's my mount at the bottom, right? I had this screwed in. The spring's 3 inches. And then here's part of my quick release I bought. That's on there. That other piece I showed you on that other antenna slides down to this far. It makes it, you know, for an easy way to put the antenna on and off, no tools required. So now we're talking 3, 4, 5, 5.5 inches of extra, you know, metal I put on there. Well, for some reason, that 4-foot fire stick antenna worked great. My SWRs read well. Don't know why, so I didn't think anything of it. So I decided I wanted to buy a 6-foot fiberglass antenna. It's called a skip shooter. It basically looks just like that Wilson antenna I showed you out there with the little adjustable tip, but it's 6 feet long. Longer the antenna, the better. So I put my quick release on, used a coil, put it on there. My SWRs were off the chart and I couldn't figure out why. So after all these years, I finally broke down and bought an antenna analyzer, MFJ antenna analyzer. And that showed me the ohms were way out of whack. The SWRs were off the chart. They were like 3.5. The ohms were up around 120. It was just a mess. Now, what could have changed from keeping all this the same? All I did was add another fiberglass antenna that was 2 feet longer. Same coax, same radio, same amplifier, same vehicle. So I went on the forums and I asked my question. I posted a picture, and if I didn't post a picture, I don't think this would have got resolved. So an old timer wrote a paragraph, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 paragraphs, throwing all kinds of technical stuff at me. But basically at the end he says, get rid of that spring. Your SWRs will go down. And I thought to myself, this guy's crazy. I've been messing around with radios for 20 years. I've used these springs before. You know, you use a big spring, a 6-inch spring on a 102-inch whip. That makes it 108 inches. That's what you need. But anyway, I thought the guy was wrong. But I figured, you know what? It doesn't hurt anything to go out and remove this and try it. And sure enough, getting rid of this and putting that antenna on there, my SWRs fell right down where they're supposed to be. The ohms fell into place. The resistance, everything was good. This was acting like an extra length of antenna. It was throwing that 6 feet off by 5.5 inches. So there's always something to learn. And I went back on there and told him, I didn't believe you, but you know what? I'm glad I listened. So don't let things like this fool you. If you have high SWRs issues, the easiest thing to do is get rid of all this stuff, try it just with the antenna directly to the mount, see if that solves your problem. Also on the Jeep, it's mounted on the back corner of the Jeep behind the taillight. And you want to get your antenna up as high as you can over the roof, because if there's metal, you know, here, let's say this is metal, all right? Okay, it's mounted here, and then it's reflecting off the metal. That could also throw your SWRs off. So just be mindful of that. I do now have that antenna analyzer. I lived with it, without it for over 20 years. Do I need it? No. Is it helpful? You bet it is. But you know, you got to be willing to shell out some money for that. This little meter here, it does 3,000 watts. It does your SWR, PEP average, shows your reverse power. That's reflect coming back. That's basically if your standing wave ratio is too high, all your power doesn't get out of the antenna. It actually comes back to the radio, and that's not good. So this shows you all that. This is like a, I don't know, you can get these probably between $60 and $90, I guess. Maybe 80, maybe 80 and $100. It's a not a high-end meter, but it's a very accurate meter. You can go to the truck stop and get one for $20. You know, it's going to show you SWR. You can get one on Amazon or eBay. They're all going to do the same thing. They're not going to show you the same thing an analyzer is going to do, but you can get by with the meter. Just make sure those SWRs are low. Read about coax. It doesn't hurt to read up on coax. Certain antennas you buy, like let's say you buy just whatever, a Wilson 1000 antenna, or like on my other vehicle, I have a Sirio Performer 5000. Okay, they come with coax pre-attached to it at the length they recommend. If you buy a Fire Stick antenna, Fire Stick recommends, I believe, 18.5 feet of coax. You'd have to go on their website and read through it. Do you need 18.5 feet? Probably not. There's a huge argument about that. But if the manufacturer recommends it, I would use it. Just do what the manufacturer recommends and try that. They usually know best, not always, but you know. And hopefully that helps. If any of you guys has any more questions, feel free to, leave me a comment and I'll get back to you. I'll help you any way I can. CB radio's going the way of the dinosaurs, and they say ham radio is too. I don't know, I know I used to hear a lot more people talk on the CBs, and now it's few and far between. When Skip comes in on Channel 6, when the big dogs are talking out there, it's a blast. But when there's no Skip rolling, it's pretty quiet out there where I live. Just the trucker every once in a while. Most people around here are a good 50 miles from me. And I can reach out to them, and they can reach out to me if they're running some power. But, that's just where I live. I kind of live out here in the boonies a bit. So, but yeah, we need to make CB radio great again. All radio. All this amateur type citizens band and ham radio and everything. It's a cool hobby. Gives us something to do. We can maybe get our kids into it, and I'd like to see more young people getting into it. I think it's pretty cool. So anyways, hope this helps some of you guys. Take care.